Welcome back to the Neural Health Broadcast. I'm your host, Dr. Joe, and today we're joined by author Katianne Olson of the upcoming book, The Resilient Brain. You know, we work with a lot of TBI patients here in our clinic, and one of the things that they mention is something they struggle with is communicating their symptoms to family members and loved ones, especially young children. So what Katianne has done is create a perfect resource for those patients and those people struggling with a resource, with a book that both children and adults alike can understand. So this was a fantastic book by a fantastic author, and I think you're really going to enjoy our conversation today. So after a quick announcement, Katianne Olson and the Resilient Brain. This podcast is brought to you by Delta Neural Health, located in Columbus, Ohio, where non-invasive, personalized care is revolutionizing the way we approach complex neurological issues. With cutting-edge techniques in functional neurology, functional medicine, and chiropractic care, we're leading the way in managing conditions like concussion, dizziness, brain fog, anxiety, POTS, attention, and more. To learn more, visit our website at deltaneuralhealth.com. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe, and today we are joined by Katianne Olson. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. So you have written a book about your husband's journey with TBI. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. I am the author of the upcoming children's book called The Resilient Brain:
Mhm.
Understanding Traumatic Brain Injury for Kids.
Mhm.
And it kind of came to fruition through our family navigating my husband's TBI.
Mhm. And I think that's a perfect title too, because that just embodies that sense of hope and resiliency, obviously, that the brain has to adapt and change even despite injury or trauma. So I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
Yeah, no, and I think you nailed it right on the head. I think, hope is the biggest word that I hope that the book brings to readers and families, and also as awareness piece, because I think it's, a TBI is such an invisible injury. And I think until you're in that situation, seeing a loved one go through it, or even yourself, you kind of feel isolated and alone. So I think, when you look at the journey of, your family's journey, but also people around you who have navigated it, you see the common theme of resilience. And I think sometimes we forget how resilient our brain can really be. And I think in our family situation, it took, unfortunately, a traumatic brain injury to see just how remarkable our brains really are on a daily basis, TBI or not. So
Right, right. And would you say that this book, obviously it's a kid's book, right? Children's book. So this is geared towards kind of educating children on like how to kind of handle it if your parent may have suffered with a TBI. Is that kind of the goal of it?
yeah, so great question. So, actually, I feel like anyone can really benefit from
Hmm.
this. So, yes, it's a children's book, but it's really written in the perspective that anyone can access it, right?
Hmm.
So, a children, going through a TBI, using as a caregiver, reading it to a family member, and even as adults, really trying to make sense of what's happening in the world. And I think, my expertise, my full-time job is a special education teacher. So, for the last 13 years, I've had the honor of working with incredible kids with a variety of different disabilities. And I think the topic of disabilities, I'm grateful, has really expanded in children's literature. But I think anyone who wants to know more about traumatic brain injury, this book is for them. A family navigating, either someone in their immediate family, or maybe grandma, grandpa, or an aunt and uncle, or even a friend in their class, really it's geared to anyone can take valuable information. It is written in very kid-friendly language,
Hmm.
because I think the complexity of a traumatic brain injury is very hard to break down.
Yeah.
And I learned that in our family's experience. And I'm a special education teacher, and I was struggling on what to say to my two young kids when this was happening. So really, it's geared towards anyone as an awareness piece. And I say kind of a guide for families who are in the trenches of it, that they could pull any little bit of information that they feel benefits their family, or what they're looking for to help explain
Hmm.
kind of what's going on.
Yeah, and that's what I felt reading it because brain injury is such a complex topic, but what you were able to do is explain it in such an easy to understand way. And although it's a complex topic, you were able to convey it in ways that, came across simply yet accurately, right? Which
Yeah,
is a very hard needle to thread.
it is. And I think the beauty of it too is, it took us navigating someone going through TBI to see this community, right?
Mhm,
And I think for me, this is such a heart project, right? But it also was my teacher heart too, being like,
mhm,
when I was trying to explain to my kids what was going on, I have the background as a teacher, especially a special education teacher, and I was struggling of like, am I saying too much? Am I not saying the right things? And, I went to what I knew helps, and that's children's books.
mhm.
And I quickly realized that traumatic brain injuries are not represented in kids' books. And I was like,
Mhm,
holy cow, we got to change that. I mean, obviously, we were treading water at that point, trying to, but I think in that moment when I sat my own kids down, trying to explain about the most important person in my life,
mhm,
I was struggling. I'm like, there's got to be families who I know there's families going through the same thing that I went through.
mhm.
Um, and the statistics show that, right? I mean, the stats around brain injury are alarming, right?
Yeah.
2.8 million people a year are
Mhm,
impacted, and traumatic brain injury statistics, we're probably very grossly underestimated right now. And I think, for me, that was kind of like my charge of like, I got to change that. And, I think I was in the right place in the right time. I waited a couple years as our family kind of navigated what life looked like with this post rehabilitation to kind of really um, see, what do I really want readers to take away from this? What have I
mhm,
learned, and not really write it in the perspective of one character, because I think,
mhm.
every story is unique of those navigating a traumatic brain injury. And I wanted to hold space that every reader who is reading this can feel seen or validated or assured,
Mhm.
um, to really give space to their own individual healing journey and how that looks. So,
Yeah. And exactly, every brain injury is unique. That is something that is definitely true. But
yeah,
there are certainly things that many people commonly do experience.
yeah,
So you sharing your story and sharing the book, like you said, it just provides some validation for others who are struggling, to know they're not the only ones, that other people get it. Um, Which, that being said, would you mind sharing your own unique story with TBI?
yeah, sure. So I am a caregiver to my husband who sustained a traumatic brain injury. So while I don't have actual lived experience, I've been able to see my husband go through the process of rehabilitation from a traumatic brain injury. So back in May of 2020, my husband has sustained a traumatic brain injury from falling off a roof. Again, this was during COVID. Things were the height of COVID. It was like, oh boy, this is, it was at the time where we couldn't be together. So we were strictly relying on FaceTime to kind of go through his ICU process. And yeah, so he had a pretty intense traumatic brain injury, and he fell from a 30-foot fall. So it was pretty intense.
Mhm,
And he had, incredible medical care. We were able to go to Shirley Ryan Ability Lab in downtown
mhm,
Chicago, for his post rehabilitation care. And in that point, you just, I was gratefully allowed to be there, which is really great to see him and just help him go through that process. But yeah, so, I've been able to see it from the lens of caring from someone who was working on the rehabilitation process, but also trying to educate my kids and kind of expose them to like, this is what's happening right now. And
Mhm.
here's how things might be a little bit different. And gratefully he was back to work kind of 6 months after all that. But
Nice.
he made a remarkable, I say recovery loosely, right? But he had made a miraculous rehabilitation journey. And
Mhm.
yeah, you quickly got to see what a traumatic brain injury, how it can impact someone every day. And it was pretty remarkable on both sides, right? You're hurting because you see your loved one go through such immense pain, but then you also got to see and celebrate the journey of healing and how incredible the brain is.
Mhm.
Um, and just be able to celebrate those moments. So yeah, so this is just a lived experience that our family went through. And the freak accident, right? That oftentimes traumatic brain injury could be, that's our story. And, just, keeping hope and resilience as the focus was our mission. And
Mhm.
now it's turning into kind of empowerment to build awareness surrounding traumatic brain injury.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Shirley Ryan, Ability Lab,
Yeah.
for the great work they did.
Yeah.
And as some listeners know, I previously worked downtown Chicago, so Shirley Ryan was right next door, so we'd work with them quite a bit, and
Yeah.
they do great work. So I'm so glad
They
that
are
they did such a good
incredible.
job with him. Yeah.
Yeah, they were incredible. We owe it to them because they
Hmm.
really hold an individualized support, and plan. And I always say it's remarkable to see your loved one's brain on a huge screen and see the ripples of your brain. And I mean, the wonder of that was just like you're scared, right? Because you're like, okay, what is this going to look like? You're in the darkness and in the trenches of what is life going to look like in those early
Hmm.
moments. But then when you see the brain up on the screen, you're like, I wish everyone could see it because you're just
Hmm.
like, it's remarkable to be able to see that, the power of that. So,
Yeah. And for those who, I mean, you are incredibly lucky. You guys seem to be on the other side of it for the
yeah.
most part. For those of our listeners who maybe are in the thick of it, what
Yeah.
are some maybe words of hope or comfort that you can maybe convey to them uh, so that they can just keep being resilient, right?
Yeah. I think, um, it is it is a choice, right? And when you're navigating a traumatic brain injury, you're going to have a lot of choices to make. And I think, you know, your mindset is crucial. I think taking care of yourself and asking those around you for help and building a community and connecting with those who have navigated a traumatic brain injury is vital. And I think, it is very easy to spin down that dark hole of worry and fear and, what is life going to look like? But I think keeping yourself hopeful and seeing how remarkable our brains are, TBI or not, and really just doing the things that take care of you and just giving yourself space to acknowledge that this is really hard.
Hmm.
And I had to have that conversations with, my daughter was 3, going to be 4. My son was just turning 1. This is going to be hard and it's going to feel scary. And I think holding space of we're learning together and each day might change, but having the faith and hope that we're going to get through this. And what this looks like, I don't know. And I think that's the mystery of traumatic brain injury. You never know. And I think, yes, our family's journey was very lucky and my husband was able to get back to work, and not everyone has to go through that. Some have permanent disabilities from a traumatic brain injury, but just really networking yourself and root yourself into a community to help you through that, of those with similar experiences and worries and fears, and just really building that community, because the TBI community is really powerful. And I think that's really important because
Hmm.
you can't do this alone. And I think a TBI is very isolating, right? And
Hmm.
it's, I think, putting yourself in a space where you're supported, I think, is crucial. And
Hmm.
just having hope that you can do this. And you might not think you can wear the many hats of being a caregiver or a mom or, a grandma or an aunt or whoever, whatever your role is just believing in yourself and just really having that mindset of empowerment, through that, I think, is really crucial.
Hmm. And you mentioned that it's an invisible injury and how important it is to have that support system, right? Like yourself, you were definitely on board. You were there supporting your husband. Unfortunately, not everybody has that
Yeah.
support system and they're going through it alone. And,
Mhm.
you can't always see it on an image. You can't always see it, there's no broken bone to look at necessarily.
Mhm.
So unless something shows up on MRI or you can see something in testing, you're kind of floating in this ambiguous space. Like, I don't know what's going on. I have a brain injury, so I can't convey what I'm feeling well
Mhm.
to my loved ones. My loved ones don't understand. So
Yeah.
having this book as a resource is just going to be so profound and helpful for those individuals suffering, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the hope. I think, um, by nature, I feel like I'm a positive person. So I think for me, it was, I looked at my husband, I've known him since 16, and I looked at him, I'm like, we're going to get through this and we're going to get our boots up, strapped on, ready to go. And for us, it just, there wasn't another choice. But, there is ups and downs. And I think, you know, it's a very conscious choice. And I think, it's not easy. It's not an easy choice to make, be resilient. And it's not an easy choice to say, we're going to get through this. But, I think that's my hope for the resilient brain, is that it can encourage families who, hey, we have this lived experience and it was really hard, but there is hope on the other end of it, and it's, that's my hope for the resilient brain, is for readers to be able to take one thing, if that's even having a conversation with their little ones, of like, okay, here's the words that I need because I'm speechless right now, or here's how I'm feeling scared.
Mhm,
And I think that's the beauty of the book, right? It goes into our incredible parts of our brains. It goes into how we might feel when we see a loved one go through this, but
mhm,
then also how can we be resilient? How can we make the choice to do this? And they're very practical little tips, right? That
mhm,
kids can be like, okay, I can do this. Or even the mom or the uncle reading it saying, okay, here's what we can do to help support the person that we know going through this. And I think that's the hope, is because I'm very well aware, right? We had an incredible community rallying with us, but not everyone has that. Not everyone has the access to the incredible medical care either. So really my hope is that it in some sense could be a guide for families or those reading it, to really say, hey, I'm your community here. Here's things that I can hopefully help you through that. So
mhm.
um I'm not an expert by any means, but really just taking our lived experience, and we're still living it, right? But really, taking our experience and helping those who might need it is the goal.
Yeah. And you mentioned the TBI community and how supportive those kind of online resources are, supportive and understanding. How has the reception been for the book within the TBI community?
Yeah, it's been remarkable, right? And I think it's I've been feeling so supportive and encouraged, which has been really a remarkable feeling. And oftentimes I'm hearing this is so needed. I wish
Mhm,
I had this. From even, clinicians and, professionals of like, we so needed this. This is what I could have used with, a patient of mine, or, so I really wanted to bring that whole experience, and many people who are in that TBI community, I did want to include them and be like, hey, I want to view this outside of just our family story. Does this make sense from what you experienced? And really, it's just been, I'm just so humbled to people have just rallied alongside it and just really supported it. And um, it's been remarkable to get those people together in the process of creating this, and just saying, what was something you wish you had, or does this make sense? So it's been a really collaborative experience, to take this difficult topic and look through it in multiple lenses, and make sure that it's accessible, right? That's my
mhm,
special education teacher,
mhm,
mindset in me, and making sure that those with vestibular dysfunction, can they read it,
mhm,
and it's accessible to them. And really just the support and encouragement I've received has just been grateful. And I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I couldn't have done it without the many people who've supported me so far throughout this journey.
Yeah. And I mean, the illustrations are great. The story is great. You
Thank
know,
you.
I loved it, and it's going to be a staple in our clinic because that's going to be just a really strong resource. to convey this message. So I'm very happy that you made this because it's
Thanks.
helping me out. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's much needed, and especially with just how frequent TBIs are. I was floored to see not much is out there for
Mhm.
children and families. So, I wanted to make it a multi-tier, resource for families, but also an awareness piece, which um is needed, right? And there's so much power in children's books, and I think being able to take our family's story and create something for families who are going through it just gives that awareness, right, to traumatic brain injury and how it might impact someone's everyday.
Right. And now that people are interested and know a little bit about what the book is and who it's for, um, how might they find it? How can they support the book, support you, find out more about the
Yeah.
book?
Thank you. Yeah. So for the month of March, I have started a crowdfunding campaign through the organization Kickstarter, and that's to really help get the book to the printer. So as I'm self-publishing this book, the Resilient Brain has financially and has been on me, which I would do this 1,000 times over again, but it does add up quick, especially
Mhm.
with a children's book. So that campaign will end March 31st. And I intentionally started that in March because March is Brain Injury Awareness Month. So I
Mhm.
really wanted to use the goal and the mission of the Resilient Brain as an awareness piece to also build awareness for those, even if they order or not. So the Kickstarter will go through March 31st. And then there's a bunch of different tiers and rewards. That's so readers could get an early release signed copy, but there's also different tiers of awareness tools like a t-shirt or Yeti Ramblers. So really just to help build exposure around traumatic brain injuries. So that will be only accessible through the Kickstarter. Otherwise, the Resilient Brain will be launched on Amazon sometime in June. For those interested, I suggest following my Instagram, which is at the Resilient Brain. All the information on sharing timelines and updates regarding the Kickstarter and the Amazon launch will be kind of posted through those means. So, and really just sharing out. I mean, this month of March is about an awareness month, and just, allowing others to read all about traumatic brain injury. So this month on my Instagram, I've been posting a daily traumatic brain injury fact or awareness piece. So people can hop onto there to kind of learn more about that and learn more about the Kickstarter campaign and hopefully the Amazon launch soon. So
Mhm. Yeah, that's fantastic. So the Resilient Brain, Katianne Olson, definitely go check it out. Um, support this book because we need more books like this. Like she said, there are not a lot available, and this is a fantastic one. So yeah, paving the way for future great TBI brain related children's books, I think. So yeah, thank you
thank
so
you. I
much.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming on the show today. We'll have all your information in the show notes for people who want to find the book, want to find you. So look for that there. But yeah, thank you again so much.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And I just so appreciate your support. Thank you.
Of course. All right, everybody. From the Neurohealth Broadcast, take care.